All right, everybody, welcome to the Profit Tool Belt podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about money for GCs, for subs, how that works, how it flows. I've got as a guest for you, Chris Doyle. Now, Chris runs Build, BILLD.com. They finance subcontractor business. It's going to be a little more commercial focused. For those of you in the residential field, you're going to get something out of this for sure today when we talk about how to set up, the right kind of payment structure, but definitely on the commercial side, you guys are going to get a ton of value out of this today. So let's get into the episode and hear what Chris has to say about getting paid as a subcontractor. Mr. Chris Doyle, how are you?
Doing great, Dominic.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. Staying warm.
Well, you and I might be the only guys. I know we might be the only guys working today.
Maybe our office is completely empty. Well, we're working from home. We're all working, but most people are working from home. Texans don't normally get out in 15-degree weather.
And this is it, as for people who don't know, we're recording this during the Christmas season. It'll come out a few weeks from now because, we produce in advance, but right now we're in that weird doldrum where people are kind of working, but not really. And so that's how we got on your schedule. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, no, but it's a fun time to do podcasts and talk shop.
Yeah. Well, today you and I are going to talk about specifically shop, for contractors, when to stop working, like when you finally have to say enough is enough. Let me back up for a second. You ready for that?
Sure. Yeah.
Chris Doyle, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these contractors all around the world?
Yeah. So, you know what? I've been in construction my entire life. I started framing houses. I say 16 because that's the legal age, but probably a little bit before that. And when I was young, it was the best job, I would say, because I would, I'd get a good workout. I'd normally have my shirt off, so I'd got a tan, and it paid cash every week. And from there, went into building houses after college. Did quite a bit in the commercial space, doing anything from, stadium work, hotels, hospitals, civil work. Then did a kind of a transition into renewable energy in the solar space. Got pretty heavy into solar energy development. Also, a lot of work in disaster recovery. Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Andrew in Houston,
that spits
Hurricane
off a lot of work,
Katrina.
Yeah.
And that was specifically with like FEMA, repairs, things like that.
Yeah.
So have done like the full cycle, I feel like, in the construction space.
Yeah. You've done everything except landscaping, and you probably just forgot to mention landscaping.
I know I'm so bad at landscaping too. I do of course, my own lawn, and I try so hard to do my own landscape, and I'm horrible at it. Just don't have it.
Yeah. The guys that do underground sprinkler systems, I don't know why. I don't even want to get my head wrapped around it.
Yeah, and it's there's always like these odd like certifications and the back, what do you call it, the not backfill, where it can't, like, yeah. And I remember in Houston in the early days, it was the hardest inspection to get, is this
Really
silly irrigation. No, it's not silly, but like this pain in the ass thing that we'd have to get
certified for.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you've got a background in construction, which lines you up perfectly to be talking to this crew here, because as you know, everybody here is a business owner. We're all forward-facing business owners, curious about how to get better at business. And when we tracked you down, you're a finance expert in this space now. So you've gone from being on the tools, literally wearing the belt, to now on the finance side. The topic you and I came up with is when to stop working.
Yep.
Right? When you're working for a customer and they're not paying or things aren't going right, when do you stop working? Which I think is a great thing to dig into, because too many of us, we put our name on a contract and we take it seriously, but they stop paying us as if they're taking it seriously.
Yeah. And everyone's been here before. You're on a project, and this is mostly commercial, or basically non-single family residential, where you have this structure where you're working for a general contractor. But in new residential as well, there's some of this, but you're in a position where you're on the project, you're doing work, you're a few months in, And maybe you have actually gotten paid on your first pay app and your second, but you hit a delay.
Yeah.
And everyone knows the kind of classic superintendent phone call that says you better be out here today. And you're out on the job, but you're saying, hey, I'm in a position that I haven't been paid on the previous month. I'm billing the current month. Maybe even further, where you're 3 pay apps in, you're about to submit your third pay app that hasn't, and
Oh,
3 back hasn't been paid yet. And you're saying, hey, I got to get paid, right? We're partners in this, right? And this is the conversation with the general contractor.
right.
And they're in the same boat. I think everyone forgets that general contractors don't just sit on cash, right? That
If
when the funds get to the general contractor, they get released pretty quickly. So they're in the same position. The thing is, they don't have the same, burden, right? They're not paying for materials. There's
right.
some labor, but proportion to what the subs carry, it's much greater burden on the sub.
That's right.
And the question is, what do you do about it, right? And for those that have been in the position where they have to earn this business,
Yeah.
that this is oftentimes like a 2-year journey to get your very first project. Sometimes even longer. You're bidding a GC, right? You start in the early days of just letting them accept your bid. Then they
Right.
start scoping your bid out more. Then you get really aggressive on pricing, trying to earn that first shot. You get your first shot. You're on the project. You want to impress them. You want more work for them. They're a good general contractor. You want more, and then they stop paying, and it's not their fault. What do you do? And that's a dilemma that
Yeah.
all of our customers and subcontractors across the country deal with, and it's really tough, to decide what you do.
Yeah. That's crazy. It happens so often too. You know that pay when paid clause
Yep, yep.
and various other forms of that clause that you see. Should we be backing up to that point and and talking a little bit about being careful on the contracts we take because those clauses have a real meaning.
See, I take a slightly different approach. I do think you have to obviously pay attention to the terms of your contract, but at the end of the day, they don't matter. They matter in the case that says, because what if your contract says you're paid in 30 days, and on day 40 you haven't been paid? Same
Mm-hmm.
position. What do you say? Do you send them a notice that they're in breach? Do you stop, performing your scope of work? It's really the same position. You're going to get the same language, right? The
Mm,
contract also says you're not allowed to complete change orders until you have a fully executed copy of a change order.
right.
Who on earth has ever had a fully executed change order before they've started work on a change order? In the history of construction, may not have ever happened. Now that's a joke, obviously,
Well, it
but you
does.
you
I
you
do see
you
it
know how it
happen.
is.
Yeah, but you get caught in that situation where everybody's on a deadline and it's the Thursday of a long weekend. And look, we got to get this done or we can't get the next thing done. And yeah, you're right. It does happen. But it's a horrible situation because you're there doing your best and you're going to be held to the standard of doing your best and you're not
Yep,
getting paid.
yep. And look, here's my position on this. It's a delicate matter. You always want to you have to weigh the relationship with the general contractor, but there's
Mm,
one fundamental thing that subcontractors have to realize,
mm,
and that is that a general contractor does not have the same urgency to pay you as you have to get paid. And
yeah.
that's it. And there is not a general contractor in the country that feels the same pain that the corresponding subcontractors on the project feel when they're not being paid.
Wow.
Unless for whatever reason the general contractor is self-performing and they have that same burn, you'll see some urgency then. And I'm not sure that that's not necessarily an attack on general contractors. They're probably perceived that way, but what it really, I mean, it's the truth. They don't have the same financial impact that a subcontractor does. And so as a sub, what do you do? Do you just sing the blues to the general contractor? And the truth is you have to raise the level of urgency for the general contractor. If you stop work, what's going to happen downstream, right? So
Mm,
if your insulation, drywall's next, they can't work. If your drywall, paint's next, they can't work. If your security, right, insulation can't work. So there is this broader downstream effect And I think that subcontractors feel that guilt,
So,
and
but are you
certainly
saying that I have to do my work so that the drywaller can come in next? Or does there come a point where I go, look, I'm not getting paid. I can't go forward. I can't pay my
correct,
guys. I can't take out another line of credit on my home.
correct.
I can't not personally get paid. What do we do? When do we call it and how do we mitigate this problem?
Yeah, I think there isn't a magical answer, first of all, but I think that you have to be persistent up front before the discomfort really starts,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So,
Choose your pain,
um,
I call it. You have to choose
if
your
you,
pain.
yeah, I mean, if you know your run rate and your burn and what you can handle, and if that's 60 days, start that communication on day 30. If it's 90 days, start that on day 60. Look, it's not uncommon to go 90 days without a payment on a project.
Mm,
It happens. Now that doesn't mean that there's not a high level of certainty that you'll get paid. It's just that the funds haven't hit your account for whatever reason.
yeah.
And so kind of first tip would be relentless about the communication and impact up front. So if your terms are, 30 days, then, and even in a pay when paid, right? Pay when paid, what does that really matter if you're 90 days in, right? But to set an expectation of when you want to get paid, make sure that expectation is set with a general contractor. Very quickly and proactively communicate that, that was your expectation going into the project, and that is what you need to run your business.
Mm,
That's not a sign of weakness, right? There's no magic tricks here. It's cash in, cash out, and a business can only take so much. And the general contractor certainly couldn't take this if they had the same type of expenses as a sub have.
yeah.
And so, being really proactive, that way when you do get to that painful moment where you may need to stop, maybe that's 60 days in, you say, look, hey, I pinged you every Monday since 30 days out.
Right.
Every time I had an escalated kind of message of what the impact would be to the project, and here we are. So now I'm gonna move forward with what I'm saying. And you may even have like scripted notes that you fire out
I would
that
suggest that you do have a system
templatize.
like that. It's right. The first 30 days you say this, or what do you suggested weekly, right? Weekly in that first bit. This is the message we say in the first day we start the job. Then you tell them we're going to have a communication schedule, which you mentioned. We talk to them every Monday, however you choose to do that. But those should be scripted. And I would add, I think there should only be one person doing the talking. So you
From the
can't get,
subcontractor.
yeah. So you can't get into a he said, she said, or you're not sure what is agreed to. And the little gray areas in between, sometimes people will grab those.
Yeah, no, and it's probably the same point for the general contractor. Sometimes things get mixed up between the, good news project engineer, the superintendent, and then the project manager
Mm,
on, when and what. But, they don't, like I said, they don't really hold the cash. So it's not, they do have the impact because they're negotiating with the property owner, and they can say, hey, we're going to stop work, right? But hey, our subcontractors are going to stop work, but it's never to their advantage for that to actually happen. um
it's to nobody's advantage. Yeah.
it Correct.
Yeah, like it. So,
Yeah.
but why do you have to get right to that point where you say we're going to pull the guys off?
I 5 days sooner than you want to.
Yeah.
um yeah, and I think this is something that subcontractors just need more conviction and confidence in. Taking that action, if you've proactively messaged what you'll need to do as a business, actually shows more financial discipline and resiliency than continuing to be strung along.
Mm.
And this is something that is hard as a subcontractor when especially when you're growing, you own the business, and you are working very hard. I mean, working hard is not even enough to describe it, right? What it takes to build a subcontracting business is
A
really
hundred
blood,
percent of your
blood, sweat, and
soul.
tears,
It's
right? No,
everything.
it
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah.
is. And the pain that comes along with that, right? That, the 5 a.m. early mornings, the, Saturday morning cuss outs, the the pleading, like cash in, cash out nature of this business, and tracking every dollar, the labor shortages, the price increases, this starts to weigh very heavily on a business owner. Look, I mean, I don't have to keep going. I'm probably stressing the listeners out just by saying all these things, but this is something that, when you're on this project, how hard it was to get there, and how do you just let it go? And my message is that if you do it properly and proactively, you actually show more strength by walking away than you do by continuing
Yeah.
to kind of go along with the project.
Now, I don't want to play games here, but when I talk about the walk away, is it, we've done everything we need to do. So on the first day with the super, we walk up to him, her, and say, hey, glad to be working with you guys. These are our rules and expectations. I'm going to be contacting you every Monday. And they'll say, no, we don't do it that way. And you say, well, we do. We're going to be contacting you every Monday or every Tuesday at this time to keep you informed. And then you're going to do that every week. So you make a commitment, you show your way through that commitment. But then it comes to the point where things have broken down. And we say, look, we're not going to show up tomorrow. Or do you say to your guys, we're not going to show up at the beginning of the day. We're going to show up at noon because I want to get the super's attention. Like, I don't want to be playing games here, but what do you suggest we do to give the note that we're serious about this?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a book, I think it's called Powers of Influence, that I think about a lot when you think about how to influence big kind of ecosystems, right? Not it's not meant for like one-on-one.
Right.
And it's more in the political domain, and it talks about things like how you use the open markets, how you use negotiate, like political negotiations, et cetera. So if you break this down on a project, how do you influence the project? The first would be, the strategy isn't always just like, oh yeah, I stopped working. Yeah, I let you know proactively, like we're out. It could be, first of all, you want to message all the right people. So the superintendent, project engineer, project manager are all included in this message, right?
Of course,
So the
right.
superintendent is really focused on the schedule, the project manager more so the budget. And so if the goal at the end of the day is to raise the urgency of what that message between the GC and the property owner are, let's keep that the focus. So by including the superintendent in pretty early, what that that individual then can help apply pressure, right, to raise that urgency. Another option is, instead of not showing up, you say, hey, look, I actually am going to need to payment, so I can pay my suppliers, and I'm not going to be able to order any more material, right? So in that way, you're not really saying I'm not going to be there. You're committed to the project, you're committed to the relationship, but you're at this impasse where, and look, you can manipulate this a bit, right? It's like, maybe you have the material in your warehouse, you're not going to pull it, right? It's, hey, I can't pay for any more material. Look, you're 3 months in with me, 2 months in.
Yeah.
So that's another way. Then you send two guys out to the job to do some work, but you haven't officially pulled off, right? And then it seems a little bit more reasonable than a subcontractor simply
Just walking away.
right, walking away and say, oh,
The key
because
behind the key behind all of this is communication. And a lot of times in the contracting business, we're not good at communicating. It's not a comfortable place. It's not a thing that we're necessarily trained on doing, but we are trying, like your book here, Powers of Influence, or your book suggestion is a really good one. Like, we're trying to influence multiple people, and we have to understand what different people care about on the other side of this equation, on the builder side.
yeah, I'm not so sure. I mean, if you think about communication throughout a call, I mean, how many emails does a project manager get a day? How many phone calls do they
Oh
get? How
God.
many, right, texts do they get? And you've been in the trailer. It's like people coming and going all the time, right? A lot of times these guys have their door shut. They're so sick of talking to people. And to me, it's a matter of really, it's urgency, right? And how do you create that urgency, and being disciplined about it? On a let's be honest, when you're on a hospital project and
Mm.
you're in these situations, you kind of just say, I know this money's coming. I'm gonna, like, I'll figure this out, unless it's so big that, like, you really cannot. But
Cash flow for that long. Yeah.
Another matter that I think is important for subs to realize is, what does that project actually look like? And sometimes you get a contract,
Hmm.
200, $300,000, but what is that contract? Let's say it's a church, you're putting in a new I don't know, audio visual, right? Video, right? And it's a pretty hefty, call it $200,000 contract, but it's like you and one other contractor. Maybe there's some other stuff being done, lighting
Alarms
or
along
something
with
like
others.
that.
Yeah.
But you're like, all of a sudden, you're the full concentration of the work. Yeah, you're still working through a general contractor, but what's behind this? A church, right? And what's the funding behind that? So there's another lens to look at your project that you also need to consider um, pulling off, or what I would say, stop working sooner than others.
Huh.
And
What is
you know
that?
what
I don't follow what you mean here. So because it's a church or because it's a hospital, I take a slightly different approach.
is your contract bankable?
Uh, so it's
Every
different than a
project.
strip mall, right? Different than an L-shaped strip mall.
Correct. What is, choose what project you want to be on. They're all $200,000 projects, okay?
Hmm.
Contracts. A gas station remodel,
Yeah.
a church audio video, a large stadium. Those actually can be a real pain. Or a university building, right? Which one is more certain to be paid? you
I,
you can you can rank order these, right?
right.
University, the project's bonded, they're building everywhere. The general
They're always
contractors on,
building. Yeah.
yeah, they're on many projects. They have just direct relationships with that owner, with the project owner, right? The university rep, whoever's building it. This is like due course of business for them, right? The stadium, a ton of media coverage, right? A lot of eyeballs on it. A gas station remodel, property value isn't worth a lot, could easily just say stop and then do nothing and the foreclose on the property, right? Church says, oh, I changed my mind and you didn't do it right. And then so I guess there's another lens at which you look at your project, and I can
Hmm.
come up with a million different examples here. And here's what I would start with is, one is the property itself. What is the property and what is the improvement,
Hmm.
right? And what is your contract in relation to that, right? And that's going to give you some kind of ratio.
Yeah.
A good bankable project, the contractor is a small part of a big project, right?
Nice.
Now look at the general contractor, right? What are they bankable, right?
Hmm.
Are they a $6 billion GC where you're nothing to them and they'll just kind of push you around? Are they a $100 million kind of newer GC where they've got to really be scrappy to make things work, or they're somewhere in the middle?
Right.
All of these things matter and should actually determine, you know,
I,
that when you stop, right,
yeah.
decision.
It's interesting that you're coming at something that I talk about a lot on the show, which is to build this business on purpose. And we actually have to choose our customers. I've had guys, I'll go speak to industry associations, and it's tough when you're speaking to a construction industry association because everybody around those tables is pretty good at playing poker. Their face doesn't change no matter what I say. And
Hmm.
there's usually a guy towards the end of the presentation who'll say, "Hey, Rubino, there's only 5 or 6 big players in the city, and everybody around this table competes for that same business with the same guys." And
Hmm.
I'm always coming back and I'm saying, well, then you guys got to put on your big boy pants and go find new customers
Yep.
because they've got you believing that they're the only 5 GCs and you're the only 5 guys bidding.
Hmm.
There's other business to be had, but you've got to actually go out there and find it, define what you want, figure out who your ideal customer is, and chase it. And very easily you said, well, there's hospital business, there's church business, there's 1,000 different combinations of business, but you have to actively go out and find it instead of just saying, well, this is what the world gave me. Here I
Yep.
am in this city. That's the only business there is. Not true.
Yeah, and especially when you start looking at the big logos out there, the Turners, the Becks, the larger general contractors, there's a little bit of a lure around those that, look, these are great general contractors. I don't mean that negatively,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of others that are smaller and are hungry for, qualified, reliable subcontractors. So I a bit off topic, but like completely agree that you want to diversify. And sometimes those big heavy hitter GCs end up not being the best customers because they're so sought after. So your competition for those for their bandwidth and their call it quote unquote relationship and approval of your company is just too hard to win.
Yeah.
Right. You have all the, all the best subs looking for that work. And right around the corner, there's other really good projects.
Yeah. Just looking at it from a business coach side, which is about, building the value in the business and giving that business owner certainty that they've got a business that at one point they can do something with. They can sell it, they can keep it, they can run it for cash flow, whatever it is. But one of the exercises we do is we go look at all their past customers and we say, which customer's given us the most business? This is in the GC world.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize this. And one of my customers, he was getting almost all of their business through one large GC.
Mhm.
And even worse to me was all of that business was coming through one PM at that GC. And the amount of risk like that, you're balancing on a razor blade and maybe reaching out to the top of a pin to stay alive. If
Yeah.
that project manager's gone, you're gone at that GC and you've only got the one GC to deal with. And as we know, anything can happen with any company. So they were over reliant on one GC.
Yeah.
And one PM. And so I said to them, look, we got to diversify. We have to reduce the amount these guys are doing business with us. And the owner, I've been working with him for years. He's like, are you telling me to stop doing business with these guys? I'm like, no. We've got to go find other clients that make the amount of business they're giving us smaller. Like if they're giving us $1 million in business, just going to use silly numbers. If they're giving us $1 million in business, we've got to go find 3 million in other business. So these guys don't control our entire lives.
Yeah, and I think that starts pretty early too. I mean, it is easy to say, oh, well, let's just go like get more clients, more customers. That can actually be really hard. But if you do it early, right? And some of this is the playbook of building a subcontracting business. And what tends to happen in construction is everyone's so reactionary. Why? Because that is the industry. And to proactively kind of have these best practices like what you're mentioning, how to have a well diversified group of customers, when to stop on a project, how many suppliers do you work with, how do you negotiate with suppliers, how do you negotiate? Like this playbook is very much needed, and it's all, to me, it's all about being proactive.
I'm laughing because I've worked with GCs. And in the business coaching conversations with them, and obviously I'm not going to mention names, Chris, but they've got their tactics as well. And they'll say to me in our coaching meetings, well, look, we really want to make sure that one sub, we're most of their business because we can exert a lot of power. We can tell them you have to have all your materials on site before you start because we can exert that power. And so from their side, they've got business coaches too, telling them how to operate. So, and they're not necessarily being mean about it. They're just trying to run their business efficiently so they can deliver jobs and projects on time and win the next gig in their world with a builder, a developer, sorry.
If you think about this rhetoric of, we're all one kind of ecosystem, we all have the same goal to complete this project on time, on budget, safely, per plans and specs. That's predominantly driven by the general contractor because it is in their best interest. A good general contractor just drives that rhetoric and drives that culture, and it has loyal subcontractors trying to do those things. But at the end of the day, the incentives, the alignment, they're at odds, right? A general contractor wants that, which means it has follower subcontractors that kind of do everything you just said. We can kind of be a little more heavy-handed about material. That's not negative. That's not being like a GC bully. You hear all this term all GC bullying. It's that is in fact their best interest, right? It is also my best interest as a business owner for all my employees to be on time, for them to work hard every single day, and put like that's my interest. So that's what I'm acting on. And this becomes at odds with subcontractors because they have different businesses with different business requirements. One is certainly cash flow. The other is, like you said, diversification of customers. Sometimes the time to walk away could have even more competing interests because why? Your other customer is saying, "I need you right now." Right?
You're the bigger customer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the smaller is like, GCs can yell loud, and sometimes that raises the urgency for a subcontractor.
Yeah. And yelling shouldn't be the only tool, right? There's lots of different ways.
It's one of them,
It's definitely one of
and
them. It's
sometimes it
definitely
should
one.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't think we did it, or I didn't do a very good job of giving the background of how you come to be talking all about all this financial stuff when you came from actually the same background as me. I started as a framer. I remember my big promotion to outside walls. I thought I was just the king. I
It's
was the
it's so
king.
funny.
Uh,
So you start as like I always talk
Labor.
about the hierarchy. So you start as the labor guy,
Yeah.
and you're the ones dragging the 2x12 from the front driveway where they drop it off
Yeah.
up to
Yeah.
the garage header, and then then you get from that to where you're the saw man. So you're well, you when you start labor, you're the guy that pushes the broom, and then you like graduate to where you're carrying lumber. And then you from there, at least in mine, was you go
Yeah.
to the saw. I was horrible at that. I didn't make it very long there. And then you go to a gunman where you're up on the roof, you're shooting,
Oh,
you're shooting nails
scariest
in.
day of my life running along joists and truss. I could not do it. At first, I was scared
I,
beyond belief.
I was so excited when I got promoted to and I don't even remember the terminology now, but to be the guy on the roof, shooting nails. I thought it was so cool with the automated,
Yeah.
um,
With the pneumatic nailers at the time, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. No.
yeah.
Oh, I just remember I got to do outside walls and I thought I'd made it. Like I am the greatest framer in the world. I didn't know what I was doing. The guy who did the layouts on our site was like godlike. He was the
Yeah,
layouts guy. He knew
yeah,
everything.
yeah. Those are hard.
That is hard. And I don't know how we got
Hard
off on
strings.
that.
Yeah.
How do we get off on that?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
no,
your
in
background. Your
lending. Yeah,
background.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Tell me how you got to the finance side of the construction world.
yeah, so it was really the shift to renewable energy. So if you think about, solar or even energy efficiency, what it's doing, it is an asset that produces an economic value, right? And so I'll just use solar as an example. It produces electricity that costs money.
Yeah.
And so it adds economic value to the building owner or the property itself through offset in electricity usage. Same as electricity or energy efficiency, right? It's just an
Hmm.
offset to what you would otherwise use. And these all have lifespans, right? And so what happens when you have a lifespan asset that produces economic value? You finance it. Why? Because it's a
There's a
positive
return on the thing.
asset.
Yeah.
Correct. And yeah, I just kind of got thrown in solar. It's a new asset class, and lots of the stuff was being financed, and people didn't really understand it. Well, I understood finance, at MBA, like went through all the stuff, but it had
Hmm.
never really been a part of my of like my business life, like my day to day, outside of like managing a P&L. And in the solar space, you had like rating agencies trying to understand the asset and the
Mm.
reliability, not just from a technical standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. And so got very, very active in the solar space. I wrote a couple of publications published by NREL for solar PV, commercial and residential
Hmm.
best practices, reliability, things like that. And then had just been very involved with a lot of lending companies, capital providers on deals, and then ended up starting work for a solar finance company. Um,
Ah, so that's how
and
you got into the money part of,
yeah,
yeah.
and then I started a construction finance company. So now you can see the
Well,
full intersect.
that's how I tracked you down because you're running Build.
Yeah, build. Yeah,
Yeah.
BILD. Yeah.
BILLD.
Oh, sorry.
Did I say it wrong or
That's
did
right.
you say it right?
BILLD. Yeah, I think I
BILLD.
spelled it wrong.
It's hard to get a good domain name these days. That one's pretty good.
Yeah, interesting story on our domain name. We searched for uh, 2 years. So it
Oh
was
yeah.
taken, but it was private, and so we couldn't find out who owned it. And
Hmm.
we did all kinds of covert things. Come to find, it was owned by someone called William, I'll spare his last name, but it starts with a D.
William D, and he just wanted Bill D as his domain.
Bill D, right? And so he had his email. Uh, so his email was that at build.com, BILD. And we finally found him through
A broker.
a Reddit, like a Reddit avatar name, or what do you call it?
What? Yeah, yeah.
And it's
A
like, so
username.
we found some keyword searches through that. We found a post and we found it. Anyway, we ended up finding him, and and of course this person is fairly well off and was kind of like not interested.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wrote him an email. I said, hey, look, I put everything I have in this business. I started from scratch. It's my life. This would mean the world to me. Here's a very generous check for this. It is not worth this. And it wasn't that much, honestly. But for a
But
domain,
to
for
you,
a
it's a
small
lot.
domain,
Yeah, to you,
I
it's a
said,
lot.
this would mean a lot if you would let me have it. And he said, I understand. Here you go. And
Oh,
so we got the
nice,
domain. Yeah.
nice, nice. You know,
So
you
so we
never
really
know.
made it.
Yeah, you just have to ask, right? But you did a
Yeah.
lot of work to find it. You backtracked it, found a Reddit post about something else.
Yeah, it took a while, but yeah.
Yeah, good domain names are hard to find now. I mean, yeah, I don't like mine, the BizStrap plan one, but I've got 10x BLT is a strong one. You know, you start to
Oh yeah.
add numbers in there, and you get some more flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, domains, what I used to do actually for all of our customers, we'd go find domains and buy them for them.
On the solar
And
side, or even what you're doing
it's
now.
solar and construction, yeah. We'd go find them. We'd buy them immediately, just be part of the way our process worked. We go get them, we'd buy them, and then we'd gift them to our customer.
Oh, nice.
And we'd
Yeah.
say, hey, look, we found these 8 domains. They're all kind of a version of yours. We're going to gift them to you and show you how to redirect to your website. Because it's just one of those things that contractors don't think about. They do add value long term.
Hmm.
And rather than saying, hey, why don't you do this? It's easier just to do it for them and then just gift them to them.
Yeah. I actually had that happen the other day. One of my clients, and I can't use their domain name, but something happened. I was researching something on their behalf for marketing, and it said this domain's available. And I'm like, that domain's never been available. Why is that suddenly available? It was the .com because they had a different ending to theirs.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I shot them the email right away. And I'm like, this just is now available. I don't know how. Don't ask. I
Like you
just
win the
happened
lottery.
randomly found it. So yeah, they grabbed it because the having the right domain helps people find you. Listen, let's get to the more important thing. If somebody wants to find you in this world, Chris Doyle, where the heck do they do that? And what do you guys actually do?
Yeah, so where to find us is build.com, BILLD.com. Here's what we do. So, like I said, I've been in construction for the last 25 years. I've been in finance and lending the last 10 plus years. And what we do is we provide a solution for commercial contractors that need to purchase material or get an advance on their pay application to essentially bridge the gap between when they need those funds and when they actually receive the funds. So, for example, in the scenarios that we talked about, a contractor would buy their materials through us. So
Right.
they actually just buy from any material supplier that they would otherwise. We pay that supplier up front. And so they get a cash discount even, right? Because they're paying up front.
Right.
And then they pay us in 120 days. So, or
Oh,
when they're paid, right? And that's normally, around day, because if you think about it, if it takes 60 days on average to get paid, well, the sub had to buy that material 30 days or more in advance, which leaves that 90-day payment gap for
right.
material, and which is why we do 120 days. Um, and then we have another product which is an advance on your pay application that says it's like an instant payment. So
Mm,
you submit and you have an approved pay application, but you have other expenses, you have more purchases, you have labor, and you can't wait 30, 60 days, right? And so we provide an advance, 100% advance on that pay application.
wow. So it's a way to nudge yourself ahead. I mean, you still have to choose your clients properly, but now you've got the cash side taken care of a little bit. So you can work with confidence, keep your guys on site, buy the steel studs and have them dropped off, everything you need.
Correct. Yeah. And what we do is not meant to like provide any more flexibility to everything we just talked about, right? I would advocate certainly to have that same conviction on getting paid and conviction to walk off a project. When I say walk off, I mean kind of some of the strategies we talked
Yeah,
about.
like yeah.
And whether you, it should never be triggered because of your need, right? And that's where the discipline comes in. It should
Mm.
never be, okay, maybe you got an advance from build, so you're actually able to pay some bills, so you actually have some comfort. Maybe you want that flexibility to go an extra month, but you shouldn't use that as a way to not force the
Communicate, not
urgency,
have the
right?
systems, right?
Correct, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're just going to be in another position, right, a month later.
Yeah. You haven't
And
changed anything.
and this is the long game, right? If your general contractors know that this is your thing, that you expect to be paid on time and you will take action, they will know. So while that first project might be a little uncomfortable
Mm.
on this, like, hey, I'm sorry, I told you for the last 4 weeks that I couldn't go past 30 days. Here we are at 30 days. I'm going to have to move on to another project until we're paid, at least on the very last pay app. And so when you do that, it's very much expected and it's consistent behavior and it's their expectation.
Yeah. I think, one of the challenges that we have is a lot of the other business owners out there, other subtrades, aren't acting professionally. And so we get lumped in that unprofessional category. If you look at how many people listen to the podcast or any business podcast in construction, it's not that many people of all the subtrades that are out there. Not many people are trying to run this as a business. And so when you act like a reasonable business person, they take you a little more seriously because everybody else says stuff and then they just fly off the handle and show up again on Monday.
Yeah, and this is a issue that we are pretty vocal about, and that is the characteristics of a subcontractor. And
Mm,
so there's a lot of stereotypes that come up when you think about, especially when you get into the finance world, about subcontractors. And let's start with a few.
yeah.
Um, low cash balances. Okay. Owner operator.
Yeah.
Um, this is not going to be a great phrase, but rob Peter to pay Paul,
Oh, you
right?
mean take a
R-
deposit
r-
on one project to advance to the next one?
yep.
Yeah.
And reactionary, right?
Mm,
And I'll just say the words, and not good at business. Okay. Now this is my message to all of our employees. Now let's really break this down, right? Why do they have low cash balances? It's because that they have to spend money, and a lot of it, up front, and most of the time are not paid for 60 to 90 days from when they spent that money.
yeah.
What other business has that same condition, right? So that's low cash balances. Owner operator, these are entrepreneurs, right? These are people that had jobs, right? These are former electrical project managers, right? That say, you know what, I want to start something for
Yeah.
myself, my family, and for my kids, and I'm going to go on a limb and I'm going to start an electrical contracting business, right? These are entrepreneurs. Why, here I am in my hoodie. Why do I get to call myself an entrepreneur? Because I'm a and then the electrician we just mentioned is considered a owner operator. No, they're entrepreneurs, right? Rob Peter to pay Walt Paul.
Hmm.
What is that? And I almost cussed. So glad I
Yeah.
didn't. I get fired up about these things. What does that mean? It means Rob Peter to pay Paul. In construction, what you're saying is I take funds from one project
Yeah.
and I send them to resource another project. Why? Why is that? Because I'm always in a state where I'm behind, right? Why am I always behind? Because that is the dysfunction of the payment
Mm.
cycle in commercial construction, right?
It's a loop.
It is not the contractor. It is I don't know that I can say it's not the contractor's fault. I mean, they have to manage their business. They have to manage in this
Yeah.
environment. But these words are used as negative to subcontractors. They are not. Subcontractors are forced into these things as a condition into this dysfunction. And people don't realize that. And they say these words. And I know our customers, I know subcontractor business owners. And what I'm saying is what they really are. They're entrepreneurs, they're a
Yeah.
condition of their environment, they're building their legacy, right? This is what they want to do. And they don't want to shut down projects. They don't want to be behind on bills, right? But they get forced into these things. And this is why, when we talk about topics, the kind of topics I want to talk about are things that give them confidence to
Mm.
do the disciplined things that their GC doesn't want them to do, right? And to do it as something that enforces their business, not the general contractor's business.
Their priorities. Yeah, it's about running the business on simple systems. I mean, even as you started this conversation, having a schedule. I'm going to talk to you every Monday, whatever day it is. It doesn't matter. But you've got to be in front of this super or GC. If you only come to them at the last minute when you need cash, it's the first time they've heard from you. You've done a good, you say, I do a good job. We show up, we're quiet, we go about our business. But the GC doesn't really pay attention to you, then you're not on their radar. It's just a regular human relationship. You've got to be on their radar. You've got to have a good rapport with these guys. And you've got to find a way to leverage things when you need to.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. And the one thing you can do that's best for yourself is align what you're doing to create value for the GC. What does the GC want? On time, on budget, per plans and specs, and safely. Build your entire business as a subcontractor to create value for the GC on those 4 things. Not fishing trips, not Vegas trips, not lunches, those 4 things only. And when you're driving on all cylinders for those 4 things as a subcontractor, your general contractors will go to bat for you. Why? Because their job matters, right? You're doing things that create value for their, for what they want.
Right. I'm just going to repeat these back. This is how you create value for the GC: on time, on budget, per plans and specs, and then safety.
Safely. Yep.
Safety. Yep. Safety. Yep. All right. Perfect. Hey, how does somebody find you in this big wide world? I mean, you're running builds. Tell us about that and then how we find you in the big world. I mean, you've gave us an overview already.
Yeah, no, I mean, contractors, BILLD.com. Feel free to, if you're interested in the business, there's a, kind of interested, like learn more option on the website. That's probably the best approach. This is all we do. We work with, commercial subcontractors. Our mission is to be the champion of the sub. You can probably hear that in my voice. I started the business. I'm the CEO. This is what our company is all about, and we're here to really change and make it a big impact on the way payments work in the commercial space.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad we finally got you on the show. You were you were a target guest. You were on a list.
Well, yeah, no, thank you so much for reaching out. It was a pleasure, chatting when we came up with our topic, and it was a pleasure meeting today as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Chris, listen, it's close enough to Christmas that I could say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry
this
Christmas.
This is gonna go live after Christmas. Yep. So everybody's gonna be like, "What was that? When was Christmas?"
Yeah,
it'll be in 2023. Yeah, we'll be there. All right, thank you very much for being on the show. Maybe we'll have you back again to talk about this from another angle in the future.
Great. Well, thank you again.
Have a great day.
You too.
Well, Mr. Chris Doyle, thank you so much for being a guest on today's show. I have got a ton of notes. I love it when I take a lot of notes. I'm sure you took a lot of notes as well. Obviously, reach out to Chris if you have a question. But, it came back to some of the very same things that we hear about on the show. I talk about them as simple systems. Setting up a communication plan with the super or the other side of the contract, which just makes sense, right? But you're hearing it again from somebody from the finance side who's saying this is how to manage the cash flow by managing the relationship. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're stuck on a job, you're not getting paid, let's go back and understand, first, you're in the middle of it on this job. We're going to have to do what we can to get you out of that situation. But we could stop that from happening again on the next job by just taking a couple of steps and doing things a bit differently. Both Chris and I here talked about having that Monday meeting. And look, I say Monday in air quotes. I don't care what day of the week you meet him, but there's always a day. That guy's got to know that, listen, Dominic calls me every Monday at 2:00. And then he's not surprised when I call or connect with him Monday at 2:00, or when I show up on the site, my guys are working, but I show up Monday at 2:00. It's just a normal part of the conversation. There's no big fanfare. And you can say, hey, look, we're approaching the 3-week point. We're going to be at the end of our first month. The end of the first month is where the progress payments are made. Can I get a temperature check on you on how that's coming along? And the guy's going to have a conversation with you. Keep it a business level conversation. When we talk here about being the squeaky wheel and being in front of them, you want to be in front of the super or the GC or the project manager as a professional. You want to be that person they enjoy dealing with, that they know is professional, knows their job, knows what they're doing, etc. Um, I really liked what Chris did when he re-explained the definitions of characteristics of a subcontractor: low cash balance, owner, rob Peter to pay Paul, reactionary, not good at business. And he said, let's redefine that, right? Low cash balance, because that's what the industry pays, pressures them to do. Instead of calling them an owner operator, an entrepreneur. Did you guys know that I don't call you entrepreneurs on purpose, even though I fully believe you're entrepreneurs? And the reason I don't do that is because it's a scary word if you don't call yourself that. So it's interesting that he picked off on that. Anyways, a bunch of great points here. I hope you enjoyed this. Listen, stay tuned, because the next part of the episode is questions and answers with Dom. You're going to hear me there talking about 10xbuilt.com. You're going to hear me there talking about the answers to the questions that are coming in. I'd love for you to send me a question so that we can answer it live here on the podcast. In order to do that, just go to speakpipe.com/ask Dom. Leave your question there and we'll answer it here. We'll see you on that piece of the episode. Let's go there now. Hey, welcome to Questions and Answers with Dom. Today, I'm going to do a question that actually came to me. Somebody that had sent me a text. I put the number here on the show so people can text me and get one of the downloads or things like that. And anyway, somebody just texted me kind of out of frustration and said, today, my client asked if I could recommend a contractor, for, I'm not going to say it, but for another trade than they are. And they're like, how do I answer that? I have some suggestions, and I'm going to turn this into a marketing answer, and I think you're going to love it. All right. Excellent question I got here via text message. Can I recommend a contractor? Of course, you are a contractor, and they're saying, hey, can you recommend another contractor? And what do we always do? We always do this. We go, I don't want to recommend somebody because everybody else is a clown. I mean, I know I'm a great contractor. I stand behind my word. I do quality work, but I don't think I want to be recommending other people. Let's turn that around and let's make that an opportunity. Let's turn that around and make that an opportunity. So here's what I want you to do. First of all, you're going to be surprised to hear me say this. I want you to think about who your perfect customer is. Now, for those of you who've listened to the podcast more than twice, you're going to recognize that I say that all the time, right? It really is. A business owner is here to solve problems for other people, and we get paid when we do that. And so I have to know what kind of problems they have, and of course, then I have to know the kind of people I'm helping to do that, right? I just help people solve problems, and I get paid to do that. That's what a business owner is. So think about who your target customer is. Now, I've got a breakdown here for both residential and commercial contractors. It might take a little bit of creativity on your side to see where this is going, but this is going in a pretty cool direction. What we're going to do here is something that we've done for many years in many different markets. You're going to put together a book, and it's going to be called something like The Big Book of Residential Home Improvement Contractors in My Town, Nevada. Or I went and looked up some crazy town names just so you could hear some funny names. You're going to put together something called The Big Book of Residential Home Improvement Contractors in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Right? That's a real place. I've been there. Moose Jaw. It's very close to Swift Current, Saskatchewan. Just north of Manyberries, Montana, which is close to Plentywood, Montana. Anyways, you get the point here, right? Put together The Big Book of Residential Home Improvement Contractors in Ding Dong, Texas, which is also a place. But you see my point. We want to make something that's super local, that there's value in. Now, you're still saying, well, hang on, Rubino. Remember earlier when you said, I don't want to recommend anybody because everybody else is a clown and I don't want to recommend clowns? You're right. So you're going to make a book that adds value. What we're going to do first, hear me out. You're already on the podcast. Might as well stay on it for a second. I want you to think about your ideal customer and what kind of needs they might have. So in this particular case, for the residential community, I'm going to say, or for the residential client, let's say you deal with a desert retirement community, age 65 plus, no kids, 2 pets, golf course type community. Well, what kind of trades do they typically ask for? Well, they ask for all the normal ones, right? They're like, I needed a plumber, I need an electrician, I need somebody in HVAC, I need a kitchen cabinet guy, I need a reno guy. Do you know anybody for garage doors or man doors, passage doors, right? Do you know a landscaper? What about blinds? All of those things, a handyman, all of those things. And now you're still saying, but Rubino, still not listening, buddy. I don't want to recommend anybody because I don't want to look bad when I give a referral to somebody who lets them down. That's the point. So what we're going to do now is, and this is a bit of a job, but I'll tell you where this is going. It turns into marketing. You're going to go find 3 painters in your local market, 3 handymen in your local market, 3 kitchen cabinet guys, people in your local market, right? 3 HVAC contractors in your local market. And your big book is just going to have a listing of those local people. And now some of you are going, well, hang on, Dom, this sounds a lot like a manual version of Angie's List or something else, or House. Right. But House owns House. You don't own House. Angie's List owns Angie's List. You don't own that. But you can own the big book of residential home improvement contractors in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, which is a real town name, by the way. And so then what you do is on your website and in your social media, you start to offer this big, big book and offer it as a free download to people. Now, what's going to happen? First of all, you're going to put people in there that you somewhat know, right? You're going to put 3 painters. You probably already know 2. It's just a listing of, Bob's painting, George's painting, Apex. There's always an Apex painting, the name of the phone number. That's all it is. But the reason that we're doing this is because when somebody downloads this off your website, they need to give you their email address first, right? It's called an ethical bribe. That's the actual term for this. A call to action or an ethical bribe or a free download. That's the actual name of this thing. I'm going to give you this big book of residential home improvement contractors in Monkey's Eyebrow, Kentucky. In exchange, you're going to give me your email address. And now you're building your database. So we can turn this question that we don't know what to do with into a marketing piece, right? Pretty clever way to do things. Now, I'm not recommending one painter over another. I'm not recommending one home renovator over another, one roofer over another. I'm just saying, here's 3 roofers in the city. And, maybe there's somebody that you've worked with before. Now, other guys are going to be fighting to get on this list before you know it. They're like, hey, I heard you got a book and I'm not in it. No, you're not in it. Let's put your name in it. I'm not vetting anybody. These are crews that I know that work in Sarasota, Florida. Make your own decision. You're going to want to say that in the book. Make your own decision. This is a good place to start. Usually when people have a problem with a plumber, they ask a friend. Be the friend they ask. Hand them or email them this big, big book. At least it's a place to start. And you, again, are providing solutions for people. Let's switch hats on the commercial side. Okay. So commercial guys that are listening. This is an example, but it's a very strong example. You're going to have that same book, but it's going to be called The Property Manager's Reference Guide to Subtrades in Boulder, Colorado. The Property Manager's Reference Guide to Subtrades in Calgary, Alberta. The Property Manager's Reference Guide to Subtrades in Boston, Massachusetts. You see what I mean? Shreveport, da-da-da-da-da. So, and I can't forget Australia and New Zealand, right? Ireland, South Africa. I know we've got people all over the world listening. I'm sure you've got funny town names too. But put together a property manager's reference guide, because what's a property manager going to love? When there's a flood in the building and they don't have a carpet cleaning guy, or their carpet cleaning guy isn't available, or he stopped doing the work, it's nice to have this reference guide that you've got, and you're able to share it easily. And the reason you want to have this goes back to something I talk about a lot on the show, is I want you to start to think about yourself as a business person who just happens to be a roofer. I'm a business person. I'm a businessman. I'm a businesswoman who just happens to be a cabinet maker. I just happen to be a renovator. I just happen to be a forms and framing contractor. I just happen to be a painter, right? And as a business person, you want to be a person of influence. You want to be the kind of person that somebody calls and goes, look, I don't even know where to start. I need a guy that does trenchless sewer line repair, and I don't know anybody, but I thought maybe you would. And you're like, you know what? I got this crazy book. It's called The Property Manager's Reference Guide to Subtrades in Boulder, Colorado. Or if you're a residential guy, you say, you know what? I got this crazy thing called a Big Book of Residential Home Improvement Contractors in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, etc. Anyways, thank you very much for the question, folks. If you have a question, leave it here at speakpipe.com/Ask Dom. And if you're listening to this thinking, you know what? I think I'm ready for a business coach. I'm ready for somebody to stand beside me and show me how to take this business to the next level. Then go to 10xbuilt.com. That's spelled 10xblt.com. You'll read a little bit on the website. And if you think it's for you, go ahead and apply. And I'd love to meet you that way. Have a great day. Thanks for checking in.